Okay, everyone, I'm calling to order the meeting of the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee for December 16th, hard to believe, at around 2 o'clock. We have here our committee members, Diana Fetterman, Kate Rooks, myself, Chris Fowles. Ed Gibson, I don't think is joining us. He's got another meeting going on at around the same time. He will if he can, but otherwise we will continue on with our business. And we have our featured guest today, John Workman, Fire Chief, and EMD, playing dual roles, obviously, and will be working with us on the hazard mitigation grant discussion. So before we get started, I don't see any persons for open time for the public at the moment. So I am going to try and see if we can scoot through a couple of meeting minutes. Thanks, Kate, for trying to get all these things together. Let me see if I can pull up one. Oh, I even might have pulled up the right one. Very good. So thank you very much for trying to catch up on these. I think you did a great job pulling all three together here. So this is the meeting minutes, the draft from November 4th. And this was basically, I think, getting ready to for our presentation to the select board in terms of our kind of update of what we've been doing. And so this was kind of a recap of what we were going to be talking about at select board. And then just sort of reminding them that I think maybe we were expiring in terms of our 1-year charge, and that select board, if they wanted us to continue, had to reappoint us. So that was the point. So were there any comments on this particular set of minutes? All right. I'm just going to go through all three briefly, and then we can just make a motion for all of them if I can do this correctly here. Hold on just a second. Okay, and this is the one for November 18th. Let's see. This was, focusing a little bit about mass trails and how we might start working on yet another application for some design work on the Greenway. We had Aaron Tauscher here as the chair of the Greenway Committee and kind of got his input and brought him up to speed. John Workman was also here as we started talking about the hazard mitigation grant. But basically, we talked with Aaron about how we could proceed with, and the thought that we should proceed with another Mass Trails grant application. This would be number 4 to that particular program. But they really do focus on design work, and we would be kind of silly to pass up the opportunity to approach them again. There was a webinar that was coming up that I think I attended. And then we talked a little bit about the hazard mitigation plan update and what was happening and what we needed to think about. And we were at that point, was before we had reached out to PVPC. We were going to reach out to them because the other couple grant possibilities were pretty lengthy and more time consuming, most likely. So this was prior to that. And then lastly, one last one.
I will say we did mention in those meeting minutes that we were going to try to reconnect with Aaron before the end of the month. So maybe when we're thinking about our next meeting.
Yep. And I'll fill you in on one thing there too, if I can find the right one here. Hold on. Okay. Good. And then the last one was from December 2nd. December 2nd. And we were again, we had been notified that we've got money for the Community Compact IT grant. Not quite all, but that will certainly get us started. The initial pre-construction had taken place on the sidewalk cemetery, and I'll fill you in on that in a minute. And then we had heard by that point from PVPC and our contact, Mimi Kaplan, who suggested that we really work on the hazard mitigation planning grant idea, which could be anywhere around the $20,000 to $25,000 mark. And PVPC could likely provide a consultant for that, but they would not pay for the grant itself. And then we started in just talking a little bit about mass trails and the Land Water Conservation Fund grants. That's kind of where we are, guys. So was there anything that, if you look through things, was there something that needed any major corrections? I'll just do a little formatting. There's one meeting, Kate, I forget which one, but you forgot to put yourself as present. But since you took such
Oh.
good meetings, such good meeting minutes, I'm sure you were there. So yeah, if those basically were okay, nobody had any major corrections, additions?
Nope.
No?
I
Okay.
move that we accept all 3 minutes as
All right.
written.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
That's
Okay.
aye.
Yep. Falls aye. All right. Thank you very much. We'll get those posted and up. So just 2 quick updates before we jump into this next one here. The mass trails, we let me back up. Okay, mass trails for the design portion of the Greenway. 2 of the Greenway committee members, I guess Aaron may have assigned them to be sort of the grant head people in terms of working on the grant application. And it's a husband and wife, new members to the committee. I believe it's Mark Cassis and his
Ellen Singus.
Ellen Singus, I think. So they approached me a couple of days ago and asked for the copy of last year's information that we sent in, as well as the application. So I have sent that to them, although I need to double check now that I have the right email now that I said that. And so they're going to actually start working on some of the language on the mass trails thing. I'm going to put it also in the Google Docs too, so we can all kind of have access to it for the Mass Trails 22 application. That one is due February 1st. So we have not a whole lot of time, but I'm thinking that a fair amount of time, or a fair amount of that, can be accomplished with some of the language that we even used last time. The challenge is going to be, I think, putting out probably some kind of request for proposal to get an idea of what a design might cost us. And Ed is still digging up something from West Springfield that will be a guide, but we will get that early next week, that we can formulate some sort of an RFP for it. Okay, so that's just to say it's not lost, but I think we'll let the Greenway Committee get a stab at starting that, and we'll join in where we can and where we need to. All right. Secondly, the sidewalk construction was about ready to get rolling. There's some level of permitting that was still waiting to be signed at Mass DOT. That was supposed to be done maybe by today, maybe by Monday. But in the meantime, we've been told from the contractor that the asphalt plants are going to be shutting down. So this one looks like it's postponed until sometime in the spring, and we've got to reach out and get an extension from Shared Streets and Spaces. So I'll be working with Ed on that. I think we can make a decent enough case. I hope we don't get turned down, but that one is a little bit.
Why are the asphalt plants shutting down? Supply?
They shut down for the winter.
Oh.
They shut down for the winter because they don't provide the kinds of asphalt you need at that point in time. I believe they open back up in warmer weather in the springtime. So yeah, so they're shutting down. And then very lastly, the Land Water Conservation Fund project that Open Space might have been interested in their attempt to think about acquiring some land toward Palmer Mountain area. That really is not going to be applicable for what they need, because they won't reach the minimum required value for the grant. If that's what I understood, Diana?
Yeah, that's what I understood. I didn't hear an answer to my question in that webinar. Did you? I mean, maybe I got distracted, but I asked.
Yes, to the very end, only design. No,
not design.
Only design, no legal fees, no appraisal.
Oh.
That's all that would cover. Only
Okay.
design.
So that's near Pomeroy Meadow?
Pomeroy Mountain.
Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But, and the other thing is, so now I do not need to contact Melissa Cryan at all by tomorrow. Remember how that whole deadline, and Cindy talked to her, but
yeah, no, I think the LWCF is not an option for you guys at all. We'll connect right after the meeting, okay?
Okay.
But even the value of the properties isn't, to my knowledge, isn't going to be enough to meet the minimum, because it's only a 50%.
Right, but I understand that it's a no-go, but I still wasn't sure if I was supposed to, because, Cindy's in the middle of traveling, if I
Right.
was supposed to talk to Melissa or not by tomorrow. I don't
I-
think so.
I don't think so. I think it's dead in the water on that grant program.
Okay, all right.
My
Mhm.
understanding anyway. Okay, so with that, let us see if we can jump in toward the hazard mitigation planning grant. And I'm going to see what I tried to share here. So thanks, John, for jumping in and trying to work with this craziness here. Let me see if I can find this. Okay. And now, oh, wait a minute. Ed's coming in. Hold on. Okay. Nope. Did that share? Am I sharing anything? Are you seeing anything? Hi, Ed.
Yeah. we
Hi,
see
Chris.
The
Okay.
folder. We can
Okay,
see
you're seeing the folder. Okay, let me see if I can try to share this guy. I don't know. Does that work?
Yes.
Yep,
You're seeing the yellow one? Okay, good. Like I say, Google Docs and me are not friends sometimes, like most of the time. But this was I believe this was the LOI. There are 2 documents, if you recall, that we need to fill out for this particular grant that's due. Well, it's that rolling grant, right? But we're hoping to get it submitted by the middle of January, more or less, so that we don't get too far behind everybody else in line asking for the same kind of thing. So this LOI, I just put a magical date up here. What they want you to do is just to, take out the highlights when you filled in the blank. So I just filled in the town of Southampton. That's all I did so far here. Approved on December 20th, 16, but I'm not sure, John. I think it expires January 30th. I needed to find the date on that. I think it's on like on the FEMA website or something, and I need to double check that, but it's January. I just wasn't sure if it was the 30th or not. So that's a question mark. The town is going to work at a 25% share on this, which is, sorry, go ahead. Oh, was that Ed in the background with his other things going on? Okay. The budget, we had guesstimated, or from PVPC's guidance, they were saying probably around the $20,000 mark, more or less. And then if we take another, say, 5,000 of local share, then that would make it maybe a $25,000 budget, but we'll have to wait to fill in those until we get there. The thinking had been that it would be basically staff time, and that would be the members of whoever would be on the committee itself.
Okay, let me see what their hours are tomorrow. Hang on.
Hey, Ed, could you mute yourself?
Yep.
Thank you. So Ed and Bradley, our accountant, are going to work on putting together that the budget cost sheet type thing that we had seen a sample, if you remember, that said, okay, if Ed is on the committee, for example, his hourly rate is X, and the number of hours he would dedicate would be Y, and we multiply that all out. So that would be the case for members of the committee itself. John, I think we had talked about, most likely it would be certainly yourself, Ed, Randall, Tom Gone, maybe, maybe Ian, I don't know, but maybe Jerry from Board of Health, maybe a select board member. So we would probably build in 6 or 7 people until we kind of nail that down. But I'm guessing like 6 or 7 people as kind of a committee to work with the consultant, say from PVPC, and therefore allocate certain amount of hours and time frame. So we'll get to that, but just to say that that's kind of the process that we need to go through. So we will get there. So this is where we had John put in some input. And the question was, we needed to kind of give them, I guess, our top 3 vulnerabilities from our point of view. And I honestly have not had a time to go back and really kind of reread on some of the highlights of the mitigation plan itself in terms of what was the main concern 5 years ago. And so, John, I don't know if this reflects your new thinking or if this reflected whatever might have been priority 1 5 years ago. So why don't you just walk us through what you're thinking about here?
Sure. Yeah, I like yourself, didn't go back and read the past one, but from sitting on these for a few years, generally where these grants come into play are with the sort of culverts, bridges, trees, roadways, critical infrastructure. And so I basically just address those issues which seem to be ongoing for us. Certainly open to any other input. In talking with some of the DPW, PD, and folks, tree warden, it
Right.
may be worth it to get an outside person to really come in. I know that Randall in particular was saying that he can do a general assessment, but would feel more comfortable if there was really somebody who could assess average rainfalls, areas, dimensions of culverts as to how critical they are to the load of the water going through them. So that would be like an outside risk assessment person. I don't have any familiarity with that in particular, like who you would bring in for that. I'm not even sure if there is somebody, but I certainly understand where
Yeah.
that's an intimidating prospect for him to do on his own.
Mm-hmm.
But in my experience, it has generally been like DPW who does make those kind of shooting from the hip assessments. So if there wasn't the ability to do an outside assessment, certainly we could get Randall to shoot from the hip for those kind of, because culverts, bridges, trees, it's like you're looking to see where your fail points are in a weather event in particular.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
The one thing that I thought might not be a bad idea, and you can see my purple copy
Yeah.
underneath John's
Sure.
John's comment, is the whole purpose of doing the municipal vulnerability assessment was to identify things that we could apply for grant funding for. And so I was also trying to relate your top 3 concerns to that, because the folks from the municipal vulnerability program said that they would prioritize projects that we identified as high priority through that project. And at least the first 2 align with that. So I was trying to also pull language from that so we can say, hey, these top concerns, in our hazard mitigation plan also align with the MVP program.
Perfect.
Because I think that they would look for that language, and if we were going to apply for funding, and there's a ton of money through the MVP planning, MVP action grant process.
Perfect. That sounds great, and it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
So that's where that purple writing comes from.
Okay. So that what's in quotes though is something from the MVP plan itself. Was that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can include that language in that narrative. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Next was just emergency generator at the Norris school. Basically, Southampton, for any shelter, we have a regional shelter agreement with Northampton. The reality of making that work makes for a lot of strategic concerns. Busing, organizing people, where do they gather just to get a bus, whether you go in and around. And in a community I was last involved with, the school was a center point for that October snowstorm that had come through, and it's really sort of set a bar that communities try and attain to. In that event, in the town that I was in, we'd actually set up the high school, which not only housed people with cots, but it also cooked meals for 2 weeks. It had some EMS services that were provided within, and had staff that stayed there overnight. We're not as large a town, but I think that the thought of having the school be more flexible in regards to what it could provide for the town is a great idea. So a generator would add to that. It would be able to, house people. It would be able to, I don't know about cooling so much. I'm not sure what their cooling facilities is like, but
They don't
certainly,
have any.
yeah, open a window, right?
So I was actually going to ask if we should incorporate that into the number 2 priority, so it could be a heating or cooling shelter.
Sure. The generator was the first step for me, but we could certainly add on to it. So, yeah, if you want to put your thoughts in with some purple writing, that'd be great. Because I think the more thoughts we get in on this, and then we can, just refine the thoughts and, edit.
Like there's existing cost estimates for that are also outlined in the MVP process. So they know
Oh.
that that's a high, they know, I guess it was $800,000 for the, to install air conditioning, but that's already been identified as a high priority project for Southampton.
Great. Yeah, if you could include some of the wording that they use, it's always nice to use their wording.
Yeah, I will do that.
Excellent.
I didn't want to change it without asking.
No,
you.
I don't mind. I mean, I'm just, honestly, I sat down, I didn't have a ton of time, and so I kind of just spitballed it, if you will. And so I think the more minds we put to it, the better. And the points that you're making are great. I mean, whenever you're going for grants, they love to see you address their concerns directly. So
Yeah.
if we utilize the same wording, that's perfect.
Yeah. And just keep in mind, what we're doing here though is just to update the plan. We're not doing a physical project yet. Okay, just be clear.
What's the concerns, right? So the concern would be pulling the language about what we think are the top 3 priorities to address. So then we could put language about lack of a heating and cooling shelter. I was just going to try to pull
Yeah,
info right from there.
absolutely.
Yeah. And if it was included in our plan, whether we utilized it or not, I do like the idea of being able to say, here, it's in our plan, and now we're pulling it out and identifying it for a particular purpose.
Right.
I think that,
Yep. No, that's not a problem. So good. Okay. I don't know if those comments, I can't see the comments as I write them, so I'll correct any typos I made there later.
I get that. So
Okay, so the generator, and then you mentioned that we do have the MOU with the church, and that too, certainly, as you were talking in terms of space for people to overnight, a kitchen, all of that is there. Now, my question is, do we need to ever, how long was that MOU for? Is that like forever, or does it need to be renewed from time to time?
I would have to look at the language within it because
Okay.
I wouldn't want to just guess on that.
Yeah.
The other thing, at the time that it was written, I don't believe they had a generator. I knew they were doing some, I know that they were doing some fundraising for a generator, but I don't know if they've attained that yet. And, the church can work out very well, but I think we would ideally would be better served with a community owned facility, only because it addresses more of community concerns, disability, all types of clientele, perhaps animals if needed. And not that the church wouldn't be accommodating, but I think ideally would be better served with a school. But
Okay.
it's wonderful that the church is there for us.
Yeah.
It's part of the community, and grateful for it to be there
Yeah.
in whatever capacity.
Dana, do you know the update? I know they had been certainly fundraising for the generator. They aren't quite there yet, right?
I think maybe they are.
Oh, really?
I-
Okay.
I mean, I could send Candy a message and ask her.
Now, well, I guess the question would be, is the generator just to focus more on the fridge freezer capacity for the cupboard for the community pantry, or is it a generator that will, do more at the church than that? I guess I don't know the size of what they're aiming for.
Neither do I, but I
Yeah.
do know that the stated purpose in the fundraising was a generator to run 2 freezers, I think now
Yeah.
at the community cupboard if, power is lost.
Right. Yeah. So I guess which is great. And I just don't know if it's broader than that. I mean, if we needed, lights and whatever else, does it do anything beyond that? I don't know how big it is they're looking at. So that might be just some homework just to find out so we can be clear about that. Okay. How about number 3, John?
Number 3 is just in regards to gas pumps at town yard. Keeping vehicles running during an emergency is critical to reacting to whatever emergency you have. Currently, we had lost the gas pumps at the town yard due to some work that was done and then a subsequent crack, and we actually had to remove the tank that was there. The only tank that we have is a diesel tank, and I believe the diesel tank is within a year or two of its serviceable life. It's a big dollar project generally. There's a lot of there's a lot that goes into, interstitial monitoring and spill containment and those kinds of things. So it's a large project, would be a big monetary cost to the town, but would be a big improvement to our ability to react to an emergency.
Okay.
So I definitely would keep it as one of our top three. And I know that town resources are not, we don't have money falling out of our pockets, so that would
Right.
be a great one if there was any potential funding.
Yeah.
It's reached its useful life. It's now 30 years old. So our risk on the liability end has now increased fairly substantially.
Yep. And,
I'm 60 yet. What are you saying?
And,
Hey, that's what they put on a double wall tank. So I'm a little older than you are. So
so
I'm
this
saying
though,
that.
this though, and I mean, it certainly has a vulnerability. Do you think, John, this is maybe a different top three than what there was in the plan itself? I just want to be sure.
Possibly from prior. I would to answer that correctly, I would want to reference what was there prior.
Okay, so I think we all could maybe just take a look at the, there's got to be an executive summary at least in the plan to double check and see what that is. Just because I want to be sure on the instructions for this section that it's not yet reordering priorities, but it's what were they in the plan. I just want to be clear that whether we should put in what were they in the plan at the time or how have things changed now. And I just want to be sure that we're answering the right question, but this is all good information. It will come into use somewhere. Absolutely. Ed, do you not think that maybe something like to move toward Kate's point about some actual acquisition and maybe through the MVP grant, but are we not maybe possibly able to use, depending on the famous ARPA survey that I get out the door, use funds for the ARPA funds for the generator and or possibly this tank?
Oh, that's a good point.
I haven't seen anything that would lead me to believe that those fit into categories at the acceptable categories at this point. But I'm also wanting to see what the different categories are of the ARPA funds we don't have, but the state has, that the governor signed into law the other day.
Yeah, but I guess as I see some of these plans that various towns are making, I mean, like you said, I mean, we've already been granted certain ARPA funds, and the state, unlike the CARES Act, is not telling us as much anyway how to spend them, right? We have some wiggle room within some parameters, and they haven't been any more clear on parameters. We've been waiting for 6 months.
No, they haven't. But again, with this one, we become responsible if we misspend those funds. So if you take $500,000 and spend it someplace it's actually not allowed, the town's responsible for that $500,000, and we're not going to get it.
So do we have any contact at the state person we could ask that question of, or do we have a body or not? A person, or is it all just?
No, for if we have specific questions for specific uses, I can find that out.
Okay, because I know we had like a liaison or somebody for the CARES Act people we could ask questions of. I didn't know if we had anybody assigned to us from the state on that regard. Okay, we can think about that, but that might be another way, Kate. I mean, it could be MVP might be a good opportunity, but maybe there's something else too.
Well, we did say the grant, the generator also could be funded through BRIC.
Oh yeah, no, it's
just a big application.
I mean, the trouble is there's so many deadlines that are piling up at the same time. I mean, that's going to be our challenge. So, yep. Okay. Then 3A, John, internet townwide, town managed service. And I know we've talked about that through ARPA, Ed, right?
Ye-
Broadband connection, internet. Somewhat.
That was directed to Ed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yep,
What's
you're,
that, Chris?
yep. On the,
What's that?
John's 3A here, internet townwide and town managed would ensure communication to the town. I think we had talked about broadband expansion, et cetera, being one of those ARPA categories, right? Maybe.
Well, let's just remember that if the town wanted to pursue that, it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million
To do the
okay.
entire town, yeah, to do.
For
to
the
do our
entire
own-
town.
To do
Right.
our own municipal light service, yeah, yeah, that's
Right.
true.
Exactly. And right now, do you really want to put that in front of a public safety
No,
complex? I personally don't.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that broadband is an eligible kind of activity. As is the next one.
But is it a practical activity?
Well, I don't know that yet. So yes, I agree. I agree. And then the next one, though, in terms of John's point about installing main sewers in sensitive areas of town, Camden Ponds is certainly one. So that's been, and I would have expected that maybe be one of the issues that had come up in the former or the existing HMP, that must be one that had been identified before as some level of priority, I would have thought, but.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm scanning the last hazard mitigation plan. I haven't found, they don't seem to identify the top three concerns as we have here. I think it's important for us to do that.
Okay.
A lot of what Pioneer Valley Planning had done with us in the past was just sort of a general overview of where we're at risk, those kinds of things, and then they broke it down into, flooding, hurricane, and then just brush fire, severe storms, ice storms. Earthquakes, dam failure, and drought were the type of hazards that they sort of addressed. When we went through with that last study, we did like a vulnerable risk rating. For probably half of them, we were a medium risk. There was a few of them were low risk, and a couple that were very low risk. So we according to what we had done with the Planning Commission, we didn't have any number one high risk areas as defined in that plan.
Okay.
So, and like I say, I'm kind of scanning it now as we're talking, and I don't see this same question worded in that
Same way.
plan the same way.
Yeah. Can you give us an idea of the couple of the medium ones then, if we don't have any high?
Sure. Yeah. Let me scroll back up. Sorry, I'm bouncing around there a little bit. So, for flooding, we're a low risk for flooding, is what we were rated. Severe storms and ice storms were a medium risk. They do like location of occurrence, probability of future events, and impact. And even for severe snowstorms and ice storms, location would be large, probability of the future event would be very high, impact could be critical, and yet, on the hazard index, we only got a medium risk. So I'm not sure what they're, almost seems like you'd have to have snowbanks in front of you to get a high risk. Severe thunderstorms, wind, and tornadoes, they're again large risk for location of impact. Probabilities medium to high. Impact is, tornado could be catastrophic. Severe thunderstorms minor, and we did a medium risk there. Tornadoes were a low risk just by statistical data. Hurricanes, they're again large, moderate, critical, but rated a medium risk. Wildfire, brush fire, medium location of occurrence because we're limited and we have a large area of open space, forest land, but in comparative to the town, it's a medium risk. Probability of future events is low. I might argue that, but it's low. Impact is, critical just because of all the dams and everything that are around there, and it was rated a medium risk. Earthquakes, again, would be large to community. Probability of future events very low. impact could be critical, but it's a low risk for us.
Mhm.
Dam failure, medium location of occurrence, probability of future events very low. Impact could be critical, but it was rated a very low risk.
Hmm.
Drought again would be, large location of occurrence, probability of event low, impact minor, and again rated 5, very low risk. And those are the categories.
Interesting. Okay. So even the dam one, so the tricarbonate is not something that we have to be terribly worried about.
Yeah, I mean, I get updates from them each year in regards to their assessments and mitigation plans. But
Okay.
yeah, but the potential for that failure, because the dam is in pretty good shape, and I don't think water levels are so high,
Right.
That it's a low probability of event.
Right. And remind me, is it the White Reservoir that's no longer in existence, right?
Yeah, one of them where there's no water in it.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
that the one?
yeah, yeah. I want to say yes. It's not one that I deal with so often, so I'd probably want to double check if you're.
Okay. And do we not have, I know we've, do we not have privately owned dams that could be an issue for us? No?
Not that I'm aware. I think the one that was privately owned, which is right there crossing College Highway for the ice cream shop, because there's such liability to downstream folks, they'd come in and cut it open, so it's no longer considered a liability.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I think that what you just read through there, John, that is exactly that level of prioritization then that kind of or categorization, I guess, that would have happened in the last plan. So that's good to know. And I think we just need to be sure in this section that question. I'll go back and double check on the guidance in terms of how we're supposed to answer this part. Is it still kind of restating what our highest priorities were then, or is it now what we think our priorities are? So
yeah, because honestly, I feel like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Honestly, I feel like for us to be able to address our 3 highest priorities is great, because it doesn't feel from the past report that we really had the ability to do that within that report. There was nothing that really bubbled to the top that showed that we were high risk for anything.
Right.
Although I believe our top 3 concerns are good, valid concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was a place that we could at least air those concerns,
Yeah.
then we're above the game.
Yep.
I don't know how we'd fit it in. I think the previous report is well written. I think it's still appropriate as to what it talked about and answered.
Yeah.
And the only thing that it really missed at all was just the ability for us to self-identify our priorities.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think that will be part of the new process here, hopefully. So, okay. So we'll take a look at that section and be sure what it's really asking for, and then figure out what language belongs here. None of this is going to go away. If there's something that doesn't belong here, we'll save it because it'll be used elsewhere, I'm sure.
Right.
Okay. Yep. But we want to be sure that we key in and answer the question directly, and not, miss the forest for the trees kind of thing. Right. So,
yes.
Okay, and we're committed to implementing the process by, and this is how you would implement the process. So, so this is not so much the planning grant part of that sentence, but by bringing all affected departments together to strategize on priorities, I think is true. Again, this is just to say, how would we go about updating the mitigation plan itself? That's all we got to keep it narrowed on. How do we get the update of the plan done so that it's a valid document that we can use to apply for grants? Okay, it's kind of like the master plan. We had to do all the update. Now it's there. Or the open space and recreation plan. We had to update it. Say, yep, this is priority now. Something changed, and this is our new curve going forward, kind of thing. So this would be to bring people together that are in the various affected departments. So yeah. So go ahead, John, in terms of who you're recommending here.
Yeah, so pretty much it's just, who are the stakeholders, within municipal and outside? Because certainly as you get into it, it's fairly obvious for the municipal stakeholders, EMD, DPW, water department, tree warden. You certainly want town government representation within the board, town administrator, select board member, school department rep, especially if we're going to, be looking at a generator, how does that affect them? Board of Health, I mean, here we are in a pandemic. Is there input or things that we would want to, especially when it came into shelters, that we'd want to be sensitive to? Building inspector, just because it's a good idea to have him there if he's got input on anything that we're looking at. Same with police. I think it's important to reach out to community for any, representative that might have intrinsic knowledge of something specific that we're addressing, just because often in the community we do have, I've worked in volunteer fire companies and everybody's valuable, whether they're good at fighting fires or whether they have outside knowledge that can benefit the department.
Sure.
I look at it in the same way here. If there's people in the community that could help us kind of look out, put feelers out for that and try and bring them in. I think individually could help with any expertise to further any priorities we put forth. Yep. So that's pretty
Great.
much it there.
So that would be pulling them together. So Ed, just a point, I had sent you you and to work with Bradley on the potential local cost share of the various people that might be involved in the committee. And I think the one I had forgotten was Ron Lauren in terms of the combination tree warden, building inspector.
Okay,
So maybe add him on that list that I sent you.
sure. Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense.
Thank you. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
because I think that tree thing is
Yeah.
a big one, and I think that's a lesson learned probably from
Yeah.
that October storm we had, was just
Sure. Yeah.
shutting down a community just from down trees.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Specific person and title who will be the local team leader. Kind of think it's probably you, John, as the EMD.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about is just I'm stretched pretty thin. And so recognizing that, that would be, team leader, especially during an event. I think for the purposes of organization of the mitigation plan in itself, I would recommend a joint leadership. Only because there's a lot of work to do, and it's just, it can't be my only focus.
Okay.
And yet it is important, and so I think that we have a couple.
Okay, I'm just gonna put that down there.
Yeah, I have it under there. Do you
Yeah.
see that I have written it under?
Yep. Okay, I'm just making a note to myself. Yep. Okay.
Oh,
that's
okay.
fine.
Yeah,
Yep. Sorry. Yep. Yeah, I forget what I put in there as copies. Yep. Okay.
No problem.
Yeah, we create a local committee or use an existing one. So this is going to be, we're creating a new committee essentially.
Correct.
Which is fine. Yeah. And then the same kind of thing of, who's that going to be? So I think, we can come, we can do some pieces of what we said earlier in terms of who would be involved in that. Maybe some of that drops down into that section, and then the how could talk about, meetings, and, maybe we'd have a focus group with the folks at Hamden Ponds, for example, or, there's got to be some level of a public meeting, I'm sure, to have public information session to have people give input, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I don't know if I mentioned it here or later, or if it just kind of got swallowed up somewhere. But certainly, some of those outside folks, like, for the Ty Carmody Dam, they produce that document each year. If we were to address that problem, they would be appropriate to bring in for that problem. The electric company, gas companies, for, as we look at different parts of a plan, if they affected those utilities, would want to bring in representatives from those utilities.
Okay. I'm just going to write that down so I don't forget it.
I thought I'd written it, but I don't see
I think
it.
you did elsewhere, and it may just not be right here. So we'll just add
I keep-
utility reps right there.
I keep trying to scroll your document on my
Yeah, no,
window.
you
It
can't.
doesn't
Sorry,
work.
over there. Sorry. I know, that's what I love about this thing. Yeah, no, you did say that later on. So I'm just putting it there so we don't forget it in that answer as well.
Sure.
Okay.
They
so-
did, yeah, and through the MVP process, they had representatives from Holyoke Gas and Electric. There's a few other people as well
Yeah.
from outside that were really helpful. Holyoke Waterworks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they've got stuff in town, and we've got
Right.
some, pipeline stuff in town as well.
Mm-hmm.
Down on Cook Road, a pretty major pipeline there.
Okay, sounds good. All right, and then I'm going to turn over the environmental justice. Basically, we don't have any real population in town, but Kate's been our champion at researching how we can deal with the environmental justice question that comes up just about in every application. So Kate, you want to tell us what you sort of wanted to include here, maybe?
Yes, I just referenced, particularly vulnerable populations, including the disabled population, people who are living in poverty, which is a small percentage, families with children. Children are, particularly vulnerable population. I made sure to reference that we have a large percentage of our population who is 65 and older. Also just acknowledging that these people may lack resources to adapt to the impacts of climate change and access resources during hazard events. And I just said, because we rely on well water and septic so much, a lot of these people rely on that and may not be able to access those resources during power outages.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. Any thoughts on that? Anybody? Diana, John, Ed, anybody?
No, honestly, I had to look up that environmental justice populations just to ensure that I was.
The only
Yeah.
thing is, should we
addressing it.
include people from outside of Southampton? I just didn't feel like it was going to be particularly maybe helpful, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure how interested people of Westfield,
No.
Easthampton, and Holyoke are going to be in our hazard mitigation plan.
Yeah, I don't think that's, if we can find a couple residents in town, we'll be doing well, frankly.
Right.
I wanted to ask one thing in terms of your point here, the 2.5% of the population living in poverty. Is that Southampton specific?
Yes.
Where did you get that?
I found it.
Just curious.
All the
Online
parents,
available
all the parents
public-
with kids in the house.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was us in public statistics.
Yeah, okay. All right. So just so that we've got, we would probably say, according to,
I'll find
No.
the according to and I'll put that in, no problem.
Yeah. because that just gives it a little bit more oomph. But yeah,
I'll make
that's-
myself a note.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the environmental justice populations, we have very little in terms of our percentage is quite low in terms of a diverse population, either language wise or ethnicity, et cetera, compared to
Or
Holyoke,
income.
for example, or Easthampton or Westfield. So we
think
kind of
we-
fall in between. We don't really fit the mold for that
Yeah.
question a lot. But
But we
Diana,
can also emphasize the number of children because those are considered vulnerable too, like in the
right?
mass trails thing. So
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess, does our town census break it down into kids? Right?
I think so. Yeah.
It was
we
just
can-
hard because a lot of the statistics I found were people that were either under age 20 or 18, or there it was separated out for like children under the age of 5. So I
Yeah.
can look into that more. I'll
Yeah,
make
I bet-
myself a note.
I bet the school department could help with that as well.
Oh,
Mhm.
good idea.
Yeah, I mean, we know that we've got 470 kids or something up at Norris. So
Yeah,
at least
And
that.
they would have the information for Hampshire Regional as well.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
not on
Right.
the government, the federal census doesn't count that.
We'll take a look into that as well. I was kind of doing
Don't know for sure.
I will definitely do that.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, and then, so that's that, and then the non-governmental agencies, so this is a few non-town employee agencies that have infrastructure and could add, so this is where you added, John, electric company reps, water and reservoir representatives, natural gas agency reps, and cable internet reps. So yeah, that would be good. I think as you say, if appropriate, reach out to a contiguous community. Like I say, I just don't know that there'd be that much level of interest there.
No, the only thing that came to mind was sort of the Hand and Pond sewer project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I would definitely say. And so there maybe, would it be a reach out to Westfield rather than Holyoke, or what? Where does that connect in? It's Westfield that's done the work there.
Well, it's Westfield that has area. They have half the pond.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I know that they have sewer on the far side of Westfield,
Right.
but I know I don't know how far the sewer comes down. It may just be what's on, I think it's called Belanger Circle, which is off Belanger Road.
Okay.
That may be the only non-septic in Westfield, or it could include further into Westfield, further down the pond. I don't know the answer.
Okay. So at least when we got to that part of a discussion, I mean, I wouldn't think that they would necessarily be interested in sitting through everything else we talk about for Southampton, but when we got to that particular idea, that would
Yeah,
be great, probably to
they
try and
could
involve,
weigh in.
Maybe the
Would that
Westfield
fall into government agencies?
Sure.
It could, yeah. I mean, it could be like the Westfield Town Planner, for example, maybe, or the Westfield,
Sewer department, or
yeah,
I'll
Yeah.
just make a note and it says,
Yep. That's fine.
who will be include affected departments.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Good. All right, meetings and public forums will you have? Yeah, minimum of 5 meetings. Again, when we talked to PVPC, they were saying that we should put an 8 to 10 month time frame on this. So I think it would be reasonable to say, monthly meetings, at a minimum. I think that's kind of what MVP probably did. I know we met more frequently we were bi-weekly pretty much on master plan, but we had a lot more craziness to go through to really see the update on that. So 8 to 10 months, and during that time, maybe monthly meetings, like I was suggesting, maybe a special focus group meeting with the Hamden Ponds area residents regarding the sewer issue, at least one public meeting or public information session meeting, kind of like what the bylaws committee did, where they put the bylaws out and asked for comment, and then had a public meeting where people could, express that, at least something. So we've got, public engagement in this kind of thing. Those would be some of my thoughts in terms of how we've done these plans in the past.
that makes sense. I think I was just being conservative for my own time
that's fine.
management.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, something along that line. Okay. All right. So that's kind of some of those things. Let's see down at the bottom. Okay. So I think, well, we'll determine between you and Ed who's the one that's actually going to be putting this in, and then remind me, Ed, what is our new congressional district? We're no longer First Hampshire, right? Are we? With our new rep?
I'd have to go back and look. I know that our rep has changed. That's about it. And I think
Right.
we're like the 4th Hamden district now, I think, if my
Okay,
memory is
wasn't-
right. But
yeah.
I'll double check.
Thanks. I wasn't sure if it was Hampshire and Hamden. I knew Hamden had to get in there somewhere, but I didn't remember how.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll get with you in terms of obviously the federal tax number and the DUNS number. So that's some thoughts anyway, so we can go back and tinker with that a little bit. So that's good. Phew. So that's a good start, guys. I mean, some good thinking there. Let me just see if I can. Oh, I bet I lost it. Did I? I might have lost it. Let me go back one here. All right, let me try to share one more thing if I can. This was the okay, yeah. I'm gonna put that down here. Hold on. Let me share one thing here if I can find it. This is the other one I think, John, you had started on. And this was the statement of interest. And I made a comment. I forgot that I had assigned myself a section in here, so I ignored my comment about the scope of work. I think I had said that I would try to start tackling that, and I totally forgot about it. So I did not get that done as I had intended.
I went back and tried to find the assignment so I could know what I needed to do, and I couldn't find it in my email anywhere.
Yeah,
So
no,
sorry about that.
that's okay. I had that too. I can just refresh our brains on that a little bit. So this is mostly just a couple of things I guess I want us to double check. I just hit yes on a couple of these, and it doesn't show up very well in here, but I'd probably go back and I'd highlight it so I know that we're probably going to be answering yes, but yes. but reviewing the FEMA guiding principles and a couple of other things, I'd want to be sure that we haven't missed anything we're supposed to do here. And just, there's one thing as it came down, community organization name. I didn't know if it was just Town of Southampton or what it should be. So that would be probably just that, or the Emergency Management Department. Question mark there.
I would say the town.
So, town probably, yeah. Okay, I'll just take that off. If I can, yep. Expiring at the end of January 22. We're pretty sure. The title, again, just had a drop down in their template, which doesn't allow me to drop down here. So I need to go back and look at the instructions of what we would call this. I think it's just an update, HMP update, I believe, but I just want to be sure that that's the thing that they want in there. And then the project type, this one was confusing because it is somewhat tied into FEMA and BRIC as well, although it's its own separate grant. So that's one thing I'd want to just quickly double check what the project type choices are. Again, the drop downs don't let us get in here when I pull it out of the online form. So I need to just see if I can sneak in and see the choices clearly. So the scope of work have not done. That's something that need to try and tackle. So I made myself a reminder that was something that I said I was going to do. The expected outcomes, John had tried to tackle this part. So let me scroll down. Here we go. Okay. So John, go for it. And so I guess the question is, what's the purpose of doing this update? I guess that's what do we hope to have achieved by spending 8 months updating our plan?
So here again, I kind of shot from the hip, but I just said the intended outcomes of the hazard mitigation planning grants are to put Southampton in a better position to forecast potentially destabilizing events that would adversely affect our community. By enlisting a full partnership of stakeholders, both governmental and outside agencies, the Southampton team would like to fully explore and identify potential hazards and impacts, as well as formulate specific goals and objectives to help mitigate those outcomes and or formulate the best response to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That sounds pretty good, I think. It's supposed to respond to the scope of work. So you did a great job responding to the fictitious scope of work.
Yeah.
So I will try to back into it and see if I can be as creative in pulling together some level of scope of work. Anyway, got lost in the shuffle here. So yeah, that's a good at least start on this. I mean, again, these are just our first thoughts. We'll do some tinkering and tidying up, but at least we get something done on paper. It's much easier to work from, and I think it helps us in the long run. Total cost we won't know until we get that local cost share kind of figured out, but I'm going to guess it's around 25,000.
I hate to interrupt, but I have to run because I have another meeting scheduled.
Sure,
at 3
okay.
that I have to be
Thanks,
at.
Kate.
I'm sorry about that.
We're
No
going to
worries.
be
Thank
in
you.
about 5 minutes
All right,
anyway.
bye-bye.
Thank you very much for everything. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. All right, bye-bye.
Time to complete again. This was based on PVPC's whatchamacallit estimate, 8 to 10 months. And Ed, I think this does allow for both the cost share can be both staff time and in kind. I'm assuming we're not going to have any in kind money to put in here. We just rely on the staffing time to attend the meetings and be part of this update process as our 25% share. Do you think that's reasonable? I don't know that we have any kind of place where we could take $1,000 or something as cash to throw at it.
I think in kind makes the most sense.
Well, even in kind is like staff time and what have you. So
Right.
yeah,
right,
that's how we're going to have to plan to do this. Correct.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do that for the EMPG grant as well.
Yeah, some of the other examples had cash as well. Town cash, I think, is what they said. And I thought, well, I don't think we got too much of that, so probably not. And then chief elected. So this would come before. I don't know if it would come before the select board, but anyway, we'd have to mention it. So somebody's got to approve it. Be me as select board chair. I don't know, or Ed somewhere along the way. We'll figure that question out.
You are the chief elected official as the chair of the select board.
Oh, shucks. Okay. I knew that, but I thought I'd try to wiggle out of it for a minute, but anyway, okay. No other funding from any other agency for the project. That's very much going to be true. No, why did I lose my scroller? Come on now. Try this down here. Oh gosh, it just doesn't like me. Okay, come on, just don't die on me yet before Kate loses me altogether here. Come on. There's one more question here. Hold on. Well, anyway, if I can find it. There we go. And then this was the thing I wanted to. We don't have a FEMA go something or other here, I don't believe.
Oh, we should.
Here we do? Okay.
Ed would be able to answer that.
Oh, maybe that's the DUNS number stuff. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we must. So this, if we have a DUNS number, I guess we do, yeah.
Yeah, do you want it?
Ed's got it, I'm sure, yeah.
Yep, he
Or
does.
you can throw it in, whatever. But yeah, and the DUNS number address, I'm assuming, is Town Hall and,
I would assume. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
okay. Yeah, no, that empty box up above, that was only if we were getting money from another place for the grant, which we're not. So that box doesn't have to be filled in. So that's really, it's not terribly complicated. I think once we get some cost share budgeting in there, we can fill in that and we'll just, go through and tidy up that part in terms of the vulnerabilities and just be sure that we're answering the right question in the right place. That's some, it's like I say, it's all good information. It may just be in the wrong spot. So we'll just check that out. Okay. Good. Well, I think that's a good start, guys. Much appreciate your time and efforts on this. And we're going to pull Diana in for some final wordsmithing when we get to that point. But she might have a couple-week break until we get there. I'm not planning on us needing another meeting before the holidays here. I think we're done. Let's get through the new year. All of us. I think we deserve that. And so, John, anybody can go in at any time. You've got the link. You can go in and tinker and add stuff, edit it. It'll show, what the edits are, etc. And so don't hesitate to keep on kind of working on it on your own.
Yeah, I appreciate your orchestration just so I know where to focus when I have time.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Good. All right. And then we'll get together right after the new year and see where we are. But I'm thinking we ought to be able to pull it together without too much craziness. So
Sounds good.
okay. If there's no other thoughts or questions, I don't think we have anything else. There's nothing more on the MVP or the brick that I have ready to discuss. I did say that I would send a note out, and I have one drafted, and I never finished drafting it, just to ask if the various department heads like Tom and Randall and others have got any burning projects on their mind for MVP or anything like that. So if we had to think about that application, we'd know that. And I will still finish that. It got lost in the shuffle with town meeting, I think. So if there's nothing else, does anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts?
I'm good.
All right, then how about I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Diana?
Second,
All right, all in favor?
Gibson, aye.
Betterman, aye.
All's aye. Okay, we will be adjourned at 3:05. Thanks very much,
Thanks, Chris.
guys. Appreciate
Thanks,
it very, very much. Happy
Yep.
holidays, everybody.
Thank
You too.
All right,
Bye now.
bye now.